I saw my name deleted from the repository and the product still bore my code. That was just the beginning. The Slack notification blinked like a warning light. Project sync, moved to 2 p.m., please confirm. But my invite was gone. I checked the calendar 3 times, no bug, just gone, erased. Outside my office window, San Francisco shimmered in late sunlight, the kind that makes glass and steel look clean and innocent. Inside, my screen reflected something else. Absence. I was being airbrushed out of my own architecture. They thought I wouldn't notice. I did. It started 2 months after Noah came on board. Young, sharp, shiny. MBA from somewhere that sounded expensive. A dozen stories about scaling this, optimizing that, productizing everything like ideas were interchangeable parts in a Lego set. He wore sneakers with suits, called everyone buddy, laughed too loudly in meetings. The first week, he asked me to explain our load balancer system. The second, he asked why we needed it at all. I'd built that system 8 years ago, spent nights rewriting the failover logic during a DDoS attack. No one remembered that anymore, especially not Noah. By week 3, he was scheduling architecture reviews without me. I began to notice other signs. Pull requests merged without approvals. Design documents rewritten, my name moved to contributors. A junior dev asked me politely if I could clarify Noah's caching strategy. My caching strategy. Line for line from my doc, just rebranded. I smiled, asked questions, took notes, didn't say a word. I started logging everything, not just the commits, every email, every slide revision, every line of Slack. I exported backups, screenshots, quietly, carefully, and I pulled out my original employment contract, 14 pages, buried in the middle in section 14. 2. All proprietary code and documentation authored by the employee remains under shared control unless otherwise reassigned in writing. I had never reassigned it. My hands trembled when I read it. Then steadied. Noah called a team meeting one Friday. Exciting roadmap, he said, pushing velocity. He didn't mention my name, but he used my architecture diagram, with the logo moved to the center and buzzwords taped around it like ornaments. That night, I stayed in the office long after the lights shut off. Opened the terminal, navigated to the oldest repo I'd written, the core orchestration layer, typed, deactivate safety triggers, clean config locks, log changes to offsite. Then I closed the lid of my laptop and began to think about when it all started. The Monday after the roadmap meeting, my badge still worked. That surprised me. I expected the lockout to be faster. I walked past the open kitchen where a cluster of interns laughed over protein bars and cold brew. No one looked up. I passed HR where the blinds were always suspiciously tilted. Still no one. At my desk, everything was as I left it. Headphones coiled, mug half clean, laptop humming, quietly alive. I sat, opened the terminal, typed one command, watched the logs flood the screen. The product was launching in 3 weeks, built entirely on the system I had written, revised, and hardened over nearly a decade. And now, they'd stripped out my name, replaced my docs, deleted my comments. But the bones were mine, and the bones remembered. I watched from a distance. In team channels, my name vanished. Noah referred to me as legacy support. A Slack message leaked into the wrong channel. We should sunset him soon. Too much friction. Friction, that was the word now for people who built the thing you're selling. I stopped pushing code. No one noticed for 10 days. Noah scheduled one-on-ones with junior engineers. Bought custom jackets with the product logo. Gave a talk at a startup conference titled Speed Over Perfection, Shipping Fast in Modern Teams. He quoted my lines from the original scaling doc, word for word. When I brought it up to a PM I trusted, she smiled apologetically. Yeah, I know, but you're hard to read sometimes. He's just more accessible. I nodded, said nothing. Inside, something shifted. Not anger, not yet. Recognition. They had already decided I was gone. That week, I had coffee with an old colleague, Michael from the early days, when the company fit in one room and we still rolled out patches at 3 a.m. I told him what was happening, showed him the contract. Section 14. 2. His eyes widened. They never revoked it? Never even asked. He leaned back. You have leverage. Real leverage. I know. What are you going to do? I'm not sure. He paused. Just remember, they think you're furniture now. You don't need to prove you're right. You need to move when they're not looking. One Thursday morning, I opened my laptop and found a meeting invite. Subject line, realignment conversation. Participants, me, HR, Noah. I accepted, smiled, and forwarded the invite to my lawyer. They fired me over Zoom. HR read from a script. Noah said, we're pivoting, like it was a TED Talk. They offered a standard severance package, a polite reminder of my NDA, and a warning that any attempt to interfere with future deployments would be seen as malicious. I thanked them, closed the window, then opened a folder marked Fail-Safes, and activated Clause 14. 2. No drama, no explosion, just a single line pushed into the master branch. If owner revoked, disable orchestration Yachi layer. The product was still set to launch, but now it had a heartbeat. And the code knew who built it. And I began to think, really think, about what came next. The press release hit 2 days after they fired me. Velocity Core launches Streamflow, the next evolution in scalable infrastructure. I read it 3 times. My name wasn't mentioned, but every diagram, every metric, every claim about intelligent load orchestration came directly from the system I had written, rewritten, patched during outages, protected with fail-safes, including the one I'd activated. I stared at the screen and waited. The launch date was set for Thursday. On Wednesday night, I poured a whiskey and opened the Git logs. They'd pushed my system to production without a single structural review. The core orchestration engine, which Noah renamed Pulse Manager, still relied on the same threading model I designed 5 years ago, a brittle but efficient sequence, and one they didn't fully understand. I scrolled. At 02:14 a.m., a CI/CD job tagged Go Live initiated. The build passed. I closed my laptop and went to bed. Slept like a stone. Thursday, 09:00 a.m. Their product went live. Thursday, 09:13 a.m. First failure report. Timeout on routing nodes. Partial service degradation. By 09:27 a.m., multiple alerts flooded their monitoring tools. A cascading freeze in service clusters. Load balancer logic failed to redirect. Backlogs climbed. CPU usage spiked. The entire orchestration layer, my orchestration layer, had quietly gone dark. Because it no longer recognized them. Because I had revoked ownership, they didn't call me that day. Of course not. They called Michael. He forwarded the voicemail to me. Noah's voice, strained but performative. Hey man, long time. Wondering if you've spoken to my name recently? No big deal, just could use a quick sync. Thanks, buddy. Michael added one line. He's panicking. I didn't respond. I waited. That afternoon, Velocity Core went offline for 3 hours. 3 hours of failure for every app that relied on them. Clients tweeted, journalists sniffed blood, venture capital Slack channels lit up with questions. Shares fell 17 in one day. At 7:41 p.m., I received an email. Subject, urgent. We need to talk. From Noah. No greeting, no signature, just a single sentence. If this is you, you're risking everything you built. I stared at it, laughed, then replied, Noah, I'm not risking it. I'm proving who built it. The next day, my lawyer sent an official letter to the board. Detailed the contract. Outlined Clause 14. 2. Attached the audit trail of ownership with Git commits, design specs, and timestamps. Included my termination letter. And explained, with precision, that Velocity Core had deployed proprietary code, authored and retained by me without consent. The letter was polite. It was also lethal. I got the call at noon. Not from Noah, from the CEO. We hadn't spoken in years. His voice was calm but thin. We'd like to discuss a possible resolution. Quietly. Off the record. I listened. Then I said, you don't need a resolution. You need a system architect, the one who actually knows where the wires run. Would you consider returning? Maybe. Under what conditions? I smiled, said nothing. let the silence settle, and began to think about how systems fall apart, not because they break, but because the people who understand them leave. They offered me a settlement first, a generous one, stock options reinstated, a non-disclosure agreement, an apology wrapped in legalese. We regret the misalignment that led to your departure. I read the offer in my kitchen at midnight. The room was quiet, lit only by the laptop screen. Outside, the city blinked, restless. I didn't sleep. I wasn't angry, not exactly, not anymore. But I wasn't ready to disappear. Next morning, I met Michael downtown. We walked without speaking for a while, past closed bookstores and quiet cafes. They think this is about money, I finally said. Isn't it? No, it's about memory. He nodded. Then you'd better make yours louder than theirs. I declined the settlement, formally, calmly. The legal team replied within an hour. They wanted a meeting, an exploratory discussion. The conference room was the same one where I'd once whiteboarded the entire routing protocol, back when we were 6 people and no one had titles. Now it smelled like antiseptic and catered sandwiches. Noah wasn't there. But the CEO was. He smiled, tense. We'd like to bring you back. Senior technical consultant. You'd have freedom, oversight, autonomy. Full ownership of my code? Yes. Noah stays. A pause. He'll be transitioning to a strategic advisory role. I almost laughed. Almost, but I didn't. Because now I was holding the pen. The terms were written exactly as I dictated. Remote first. No direct reports. Final say on all systems architecture. And one more thing. I report to no one. I advise. They hesitated. I didn't. You want the product stable again, you give me the keys. Or I walk. And this time, I don't walk alone. They signed, quietly, without celebration. 2 days later, I walked back into the building. Not as an employee, as an anomaly. People looked up from their desks. Some smiled awkwardly, some avoided my eyes. I passed the product team room, now half empty. Noah's name was off the door. Inside, a whiteboard still bore one of his phrases, "Done is better than right." I erased it, picked up a marker, wrote, "Right lasts longer," and under it, my name. That afternoon, I sat with the new CTO, a quiet woman named Lena, hired just after the collapse. She didn't waste time. We're rebuilding trust, internally and externally. I want you to lead that rebuild. Not officially, but quietly, thoroughly. I nodded. Start with the logs, I said. Then documentation, then accountability. She smiled. The real kind. Understood. We shook hands, and in that handshake, something shifted. Not power, alignment. That night, back home, I poured another whiskey. Opened the terminal, typed reinstate safety protocols, unlock orchestration layer, set owner, verified. The system breathed again, not because it needed me, but because I remembered how it was built. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone forget. The first few weeks back, I kept to myself. No welcome party, no Slack announcements. Just a quiet login to the repos, my credentials restored. A digital nod from the system that still recognized me when the people didn't. That was enough. I started reviewing everything Noah's team had touched. Layer by layer, function by function, surface looked stable. But under the hood, chaos. Fragile shortcuts. Third-party services patched into core logic like duct tape on a sinking ship. They hadn't understood the load thresholds, or the latency tolerances, or the way the orchestration layer handled rollback under network jitter. They didn't even know where the audit logs were stored. But I did. Lena brought me into weekly product syncs, not as a participant, but as a presence. I rarely spoke. I watched, listened. And slowly the room adjusted. Engineers started pinging me directly, quiet questions, clarifications. Is this the way the router is supposed to behave under cache busting? I answered once. They remembered. A junior dev named Lucas knocked on my office door one evening. Hey. Sorry, just wanted to say I've been reading your old documentation. Oh? Yeah, the stuff from 2016, the way you broke down distributed state management. No one explains it like that anymore. He hesitated. You should teach this. I looked at him. Young, sharp, still believing that merit protects you. I am, I said. And he understood. Meanwhile, the board launched a quiet investigation into the product collapse. Noah's strategic role became mostly ceremonial. His Slack status changed from crushing Q4 to away. Eventually, his account was deactivated. No memo, no goodbye, just another line in the logs. I didn't smile, but I did close the ticket labeled Orchestration Ownership Dispute. Marked it. Resolved. The press began to shift. Tech blogs ran quiet pieces. Inside the fall and recovery of Velocity Core. My name appeared again, not in headlines, but in footnotes, in architecture diagrams, in acknowledgements. It was enough, because I hadn't returned to be a hero. I'd returned to be a reminder. Lena pulled me aside one day after a product review. We're thinking of offering you a formal VP role, title, team, equity bump. I shook my head. Not interested, she smiled, unsurprised. Can I ask why? Because I'm more useful without armor. Titles make you a target. Right now, I'm a ghost in the machine. Let's keep it that way. She nodded. You're not just fixing code, you know. Yeah, I'm fixing memory. At home that night, I found the notebook I used the week they fired me. Pages of scribbles, diagrams, anger written sideways. I flipped to the last page, wrote one line. They tried to overwrite the architect. The architecture remembered. Closed the notebook, filed it next to the contract, the one that saved everything. And thought, not for the first time, it's not revenge if the system just runs the way you designed it. It started with a whiteboard, just a simple one, mounted in a quiet corner of the office. I asked Lena for it, no one questioned me anymore. I drew a circle, then a few nodes, then connection lines, no explanation. 2 hours later, someone added a comment in blue. The next day, more arrows appeared. By Friday, the entire team was using that board to map edge cases no one had thought through in months. No scheduled meeting, no KPIs. Just engineers thinking together. And me, standing at the edge, erasing outdated logic, letting something stronger take its place. I met with a new hire named Priya, systems level, fast thinker, but quiet. Everyone talks about the pre-Noah era like it was some golden age, she said, a little unsure. Is that real? I shrugged. Not golden, just grounded. We knew what broke and why, and we didn't pretend we could ship faster than physics. She smiled. You're not like other consultants. That's because I'm not a consultant. She raised an eyebrow. Then what are you? I paused. A footprint that doesn't fade. She didn't ask again. Outside the company, rumors started to shift. Recruiters reached out. One VC emailed directly. We heard you stabilized a near collapse. Want to advise our portfolio? I replied with one word. Watching. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. Just made them remember I still existed. In the system logs, I noticed something strange. A background process had been running from Noah's deprecated deployment branch. Hidden, mislabeled, timed to execute during low-load hours. It wasn't malicious, just sloppily dangerous. A bandwidth rebalancer that overrode default latency parameters. Could have triggered another failure under peak load. I deleted it, left a comment in the logs. Stability requires memory. Pushed the update, locked the branch. No announcement, no drama, just precision. That Friday, Lena invited me to the all-hands meeting. I said no. She smiled. Why not? Because all hands are for applause. I don't need applause. Then what do you need? I thought for a moment. A system that doesn't forget who built it. She nodded. We're getting there. And she was right, because this time no one would write me out of the logs. Back home, I looked at my old desk, still stacked with notebooks, obsolete routers, old onboarding guides I'd once written by hand. I took one book, flipped it open. A line I'd scribbled years ago stared back at me. Redundancy is not failure. It's design against forgetting. I underlined it, closed the book, and left it out, visible. Just in case someone came looking. The audit came 6 weeks after my reinstatement. Internal compliance, external consultants, legal, all pouring through repositories, logs, commit histories. Not to investigate me, that phase had passed. Now they were asking different questions. Who wrote this? When was this decided? Why didn't we know what our own code could do? I didn't testify, I documented. Pages of architecture notes, comments left in scripts, a complete reconstruction of the system logic, annotated with dates, reasons, warnings. Every decision I'd made. Every cut Noah had rushed. Every fail-safe he hadn't known to look for. They read in silence and began to realize the truth. Not that I was right, but that the system had always been smarter than they gave it credit for, because it was built by someone who remembered what failure felt like at 3 a.m., when no one answered Slack, and the only thing between uptime and disaster was trust in your own logic. The board invited me to a private strategy session. No press, no PowerPoint, just 5 people in a conference room. The chairman, an older man with steady eyes, asked the first question, what would have happened if you hadn't left that fail-safe? The product would have launched. And it would have failed harder, publicly, permanently. They sat with that. Then he asked the second question, why didn't you sabotage us? I met his gaze. Because I build things to last, not to destroy. Silence, then a nod. That was the only answer they needed. After the meeting, I passed by a demo session in the common area. Lucas was presenting, Priya standing beside him. New codebase, new architecture, but underneath it, the same bones, my bones. Refined, retooled, but intact. We decoupled the latency buffer, Lucas explained, but kept the routing priorities Clara defined. Clara, not the old system, not legacy. My name, said out loud. I didn't interrupt, just watched, and let the architecture speak for itself. The next day, Lena called me into her office. We're sunsetting some of the older branches. Archiving everything pre-Streamflow. Be careful what you bury, I said. She smiled. That's why I wanted your sign-off. I leaned over her monitor, scanned the list. Hundreds of commits, thousands of lines. Leave this one, I pointed. It's not used anymore, but it holds the logic for emergency rollback. Someone might need it. One day, she highlighted it. Clicked preserve. Done. Later that week, I received a plain envelope, no logo. Inside, a formal letter, signed by the board. A new title, not VP, not CTO. Principal Architect Emeritus. No team, no org chart, just authority. A signature that couldn't be removed, not from the product, not from the system, not from memory. The next time I logged into the core repo, I saw something I hadn't expected. At the top of the README file, someone had added, this architecture was designed with care, tested by fire, and restored by the one who remembered where it began. No signature, but I didn't need one, because this time the system remembered. The lights in the office were low. Everyone had gone home hours ago. Outside, the city hummed, distant sirens, late trains, wind against glass. I stood by the server rack, not because I had to, just because it was there, the hum of the fans, the quiet pulse of something still alive, still running. I pulled out a marker. On the inside panel of the rack door, invisible unless you opened it, I wrote 5 words. Built to outlive the noise. Then I closed it, locked it, walked to the elevator. No applause, no send-off, just the quiet click of doors closing behind me. At the ground floor, I stepped into the night. No badge, no title. But I didn't need either. The system would keep running. And my name, not in the org chart, not in press releases, but deep in the architecture itself, would never be overwritten.